determines the overall lifestyle of a person, but can also affect them on a deeper level. It changes a person's perspective and values. It determines what a person is able to accomplish. Personally, I come from a lower middle class family and live in a small rented house. Sometimes we have a hard time paying bills or have to wait for the next paycheck to buy something. I get what I need, but not everything I want. My family is able to get by fine most of the time, but I don't have access to a lot of the luxuries some Americans take for granted. Economic class plays a big part in shaping both my life and future and the person I am and will become. I remember being younger, a time when my family had even less money, and always having this ridiculous embarrassment about being poor. When you are a child, those kind of things always seem to bother you more. Not getting the new toy I wanted or being disappointed on Christmas were constant reminders of how I didn't have as much money as other kids. I remember not letting friends come over to my apartment or drive in my family's car. I wasn't open about being poor. I was ashamed that I was living a different life than my friends and afraid that they would judge me or make fun of me if I told them the truth. I wanted to keep that part of me a secret. Going through life having to face struggles can cause endless worry and stress, but it also makes me stronger and more resilient. I'm not trying to say I've gone through anything that horrible in my own life, but I have had to live with seeing my parents stressing out and fighting over money, which is something not everyone can relate to. It's hard to see my mom crying because we can't pay bills. It's hard not being able to ask for things that are important to me because I know we won't be able to afford it. The amount of money you have shapes your destiny to an extent. In my case, my family can't afford sending me to college without a scholarship. I guess that means my opportunities are limited. It's not fair that I will have to work harder than most people to get somewhere in life. The way our society is structured makes it so hard to change classes. It's almost like you're stuck in whatever one you're born into, and you're one in a million if you get out. That's the way it seems to me, at least.
Another experience I had with my race was at my middle school. I did not attend High Tech High, but instead 2 local middle schools. At both of these schools, I noticed how the classes were separated. The classes seemed based upon if you were white or a minority. In general, the white people were in the honor and gate classes, and the minorities were not. With no questions asked, I ended up in those regular classes. Because of my parents' persistence, I was taken out and put into the gate classes, which left me feeling alone around all the white students. This was a good choice, though, because I knew I was going to be better prepared for high school. There is already so much pressure to succeed in school, and I am a minority, which means people often think less of me and my future. I was the only African American in these new classes, and it was really awkward. For example, during discussions, people brought up low-income neighborhoods and gangsters tapping the walls. As I sat in these classes, it felt as though they were referring to me. My neighborhood is my home, but they considered it to be the ghetto. Sitting in these classes, I could often feel eyes piercing at me to see if I was going to get offended. In that type of circumstance, I learned to look down and act as though it wasn't an awkward situation, even though it always was, and at times still is.
I was born into a lower middle class family. It would be wrong for me to say that it has been hard for me and my family financially. I have never really felt that we have been in a tight situation due to lack of money, especially when it comes to our needs and necessities, like having a condominium, a fridge with enough food, and not having to worry about whether or not we will be able to pay the basic bills. I know my family isn't the wealthiest, but I must say, we have it a tremendous amount better than a lot of other people in the US today, let alone the world. Overall, I would say that I'm content with my life financially, though there are times in my life that it can be a struggle. A large factor that determines my economic standing is my parents. Being a 16-year-old in high school, there's not much money making on my part. My parents are immigrants from the Philippines who came to the US in search of opportunity. They were able to find steady and sufficient jobs. However, This was an extremely difficult decision they had to make. Although they were confident about getting a job and being able to raise a family in a less harsh society than where they came from, they knew it would mean having to leave their families behind. I know that my parents are happy to be living in America, but I also know they miss the Philippines. This has been a struggle for my parents, especially my mom. She makes it a goal that every other year we go to the Philippines to visit our loved ones, even if it's for only a couple weeks. Some years we are able to go as a family, some years just my mom. It breaks my heart to see my mom saddened that sometimes we aren't able to go to the Philippines simply because we don't make enough money to buy plane tickets. All these tough parts of life are directly related to economic standing and opportunity.
What does being Black even mean? Is it the way people act? The way people talk, walk, look? Is it really the color of our skin that defines who we are? Because if it really and truly is how we look on the outside, if it's really the color of our skin, then yes, I am a bit Black. But what people fail to recognize is that only a small portion of my background is comprised of the people, culture, and experience our society calls Black. It turns out that this is another example of a simple label applied to a complex person such as myself. On my father's side, I'm Black, but I'm also Lightfoot Indian. On my mother's side, I am Filipino, Mexican, Guamanian, Hawaiian, Portuguese, German, and French. I am a whole mix of different ethnicities, but people fail to ever see this other side of me. It frustrates me. It hurts my feelings because I feel like there's a completely different person inside of me that no one even wants to know. There have been many people who categorize me as Black, and at first I didn't know how to interpret it, especially coming to a school where Black people are few. In 6th grade, I was the only non-white person in my class. Of course, nothing like that had ever been a problem for me at my old school, in the neighborhood I lived in, but I realized things had changed when a boy said out loud in front of everyone, "There's only one Black kid in our class." My first instinct was to look around with the other kids, but then I realized he was talking about me. Ever since then, I've been really conscious of my ethnicity, and I've had this ongoing, never-ending feeling of scrutiny. Like there's always unspoken tension in the air. Like people are always skeptical of what my dark skin means. My only wish is that I don't have to be self-conscious about my heritage. I want people to see past the labels, past the color, past everything, and just see me for me. I'm not sure I will ever be fully comfortable in my skin or being treated differently because people don't understand. It really is an ongoing struggle that affects me every day. I don't have any control over it.